So we'll start with item 2, approval of the agenda, changes to agenda and approval of agenda. And we do have one change, and that's under Superintendent's Human Resource Recommendations, out-of-field report for the 2021 through 2022 school year, and that was an add-on. So we'll move down to section 3, which will be recognitions. 3.1, the recognition of Captain Gary Benuti on the occasion of his retirement. And this will be presented by Superintendent Chambers. Looking forward to that. And then we do have a visitor on Monday night, 4.1, Senator Don Gates, Chair, Triumph Gulf Coast Incorporated, presentation of Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning Institute Grant Award. And then for the first time, we have no administrative personal appointments in a while. And then item 6, public comment. 6.1, members of the public desiring to address the school board, Form MIS 5241, public input and or discussion of agenda items. Item 7, or section 7, committee and staff reports. 7.1 is in-county travel paid for the period of July 8th through the 22nd, 2021. And then 7.2 is out-of-county travel for the same time period. Section 8 will be the consent agenda. 8.1 will be the approval of the consent agenda. 8.2, approval of the minutes of the workshop meeting of July 22nd, 2021. Minutes of budget workshop meeting of July 22nd, 2021. Minutes of regular meeting of July 26th, 2021. And then we have 8.3, request to advertise a public hearing for revision of school board policies in Chapter 1, Governance and Operations, in Chapter 4, Students, presented by Mr. McInnes. And Mr. McInnes, did you want to?
Yes, sir. These are the next 2 policies that consistent with your board revision new policy. This is Chapters 1 and 4. The changes you see there are incorporating new legislative changes. There are some just technical format cleanups for things that had not been reviewed in quite a while. And these have worked through staff and through my office and are presented to you for approval to have public hearing. The plan is to have Chapters 1 and 4 will line up for scheduling purposes with Chapters 2 and 3 for a September public hearing, at which time you can do final consideration and adoption at that time. This will get the first 4 chapters of the manual fully revised and reviewed this year.
Thank you, sir.
I have something on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. McInnes and board members, I wanted to bring up a point about how the districts are done in regard to the school board. And so I'm looking at 0102, section C, paragraph 2, or item 2. And it talks about how the school board actually, if I'm reading this right, may have the authority to change boundaries, is what it says in here, for that for the residents and so forth. So I'm not sure, maybe Dr. White or some others who've been around longer, when it kind of shifted, but several years ago I think we redid it. I know we work with the county because it's based on population. The confusing part, I think, to citizens is that when we talk about school district, we usually reference north, central, and south zones. But when it comes to districts, there's the 5 districts, and for the most part, they're geographically, except for District 3. And District 3 is an unusual one because typically, like I said, we talk north, central, south. But in District 3, you talk north to south, and it's to the west. It's like they sliced a section of that. So what happens is that even though we serve at large, it's a little confusing for citizens when in District 3, the 2 schools that actually fall in that district, one is in Baker and one is in Florosa. So it's one of the northernmost schools and the one that sits the farthest to the west, almost to the Santa Rosa County line. So I'm just curious on how that ultimately ended up happening. And also, it does say that the only time you can make changes in that is on odd-numbered years, which of course this is. And when I spoke with Supervisor-Election Lux, several weeks ago on this item. He told me that, of course, 2020 was actually a census year, but with COVID, it was delayed on the numbers. And I was just wondering if we had gotten anything on that. They, according to him, the county so far doesn't really, I don't want to say flip it, but don't really care what we do with the school part as far as who has which schools. But because it doesn't matter to them, it's all, they serve on population. So we're in a unique situation in that we have certain schools. But for example, like I said, since I represent District 3, which I'm glad to do, and I serve for everybody, but I know that from my residence, I have 5 schools within 5 miles of me, but the 2 schools that I actually represent, one is 33 miles north of me and one is 15 miles west of me. So I'm just kind of trying to get a history of how that all happened, and were we, interested in looking at that?
Well, Ms. Van Check, since you referenced my name, I do recall how that happened.
Okay.
And Mr. McInnes, I'm sure you recall because you were, of course, our board attorney at that time. And in fact, this would all be recorded in school board minutes.
Sure.
And you could ask Jan, or you yourself could go back and take a look on how that happened. But long ago, we actually had the districts rezoned or drawn such that we had a board member representing, I believe, the north end of the county that actually resided in Niceville. And so the consequence of that is that some of those districts were shifted. And if I'm not completely incorrect, I think it was about the year 2000.
It was.
And also, so those would be in the board minutes, and you can go
Okay.
back and look at all of that and see how that happened. And I think your point's well taken, that board members serve the entire school district. Yes, we have zones, so to speak, but it really, from my understanding, it really only pertains for election purposes.
That's correct.
Because we represent all schools, but for our own designs, we have districts, and but technically, we represent all schools at large. So that would be the history that you could go back and look at and see how that happened.
Thank you for that. But, and I understand that we serve everyone, but I'm just saying it is, I get asked about this a lot. Well, not every day, but often, because District 3 is the one that is the little bit unusual one because of the way the overall geographic part it covers. But yeah, so I can go and look at that, although ultimately this is where we are. And I didn't know if this is something we wanted to look at, because this is a year that we could, with it being an odd number year. But probably, sitting with the board, it really mainly only affects District 3, which I serve, because everybody else basically geographically is pretty well set, I would think. But
Well, in my opinion, it might affect more than just your boundary and where you live. And in my opinion, the reality of our, quote, districts that are for election purposes are simply a function of where we have chosen to live. Had we chosen to live somewhere else, then in fact, based upon those boundaries, we would run in a different district. But since you live where you live, that's the district that you represent.
right. Yeah, I'm just saying that the way mine is carved out is different than the way the other 4.
That's how they did it, 21 years ago, I guess.
Right, yeah.
And that is all, the board's policy tracks the Florida statute. All of that provision comes right out of the Florida statute.
Right. Okay.
But if you look at a map of your district, I mean, you're pretty much the majority, even though most of it's trees, but but you
Thank
take.
Yeah, it is. I see them when I'm driving.
But honestly, like where I live, if I was one neighborhood over, I would have been in District 3.
That's right.
So.
Well, and if I had been a couple streets over, I would have been in one.
Right, just
So,
depends on
It's,
where we choose to live.
that's right.
But I agree with Dr. White, and I think this board has shown that even though we represent District 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever district we are, we do go about and visit all the schools. We show our support for all the schools
Sure.
in the community. So I'm like you. It's interesting when you look at yours and you got Baker and La Rosa, and then that's it, you know, but then I see you at all the other schools too, so.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're a citizen, you're looking at that going, kind of shaking your head going, what, how did that happen? So, all right, thank
Yeah,
you.
I think the important key is to remember you're not, the residence areas, which the statute calls for, are not designed to count the number of schools in those areas.
Right.
They are simply designed to lay out by population as closely as possible 5 different residence areas for a member to qualify from that residence area. Beyond
Right.
that, you represent the entire school district, you represent all the schools. It's strictly for qualification and election purposes
Right.
that we have residence areas.
Right, and that works like with the county commissioners who follow the same districts. It's not as big a question because they're serving where they live, but schools were not built necessarily in those exact districts, yeah. Thank you.
I have a question on, I'm sorry. you-
I'm done, yes.
Okay. I have a question on the Chapter 4, 32, that has to do with the discipline, and I greatly appreciate the early reinstatement that was added to that. That's been a hard decision, hard vote sometimes when we've had to do that. So if this does pass, will the students from, let's say, this past year, will they qualify for this, or is it only for the students of this school year going forward?
So current students qualify for it.
Oh, okay. When you say current, you mean it from last year?
From last year.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's what I thought. Just want to make sure. And again, thank you for adding that in there. I think that's was very important to do.
Thank you.
Mr. McGinnis, were you done with 8.4 there?
Yes, sir. Just
Or 8.3?
Just want to answer any questions any board member might have about them, and then there'll be your approval Monday night. Once again, we'll have a public hearing in September on chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, we'll move on down. Item 8.4, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of a new job description for technician safety security management, and this will be presented by Dr. Lee Hale. 8.5, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of a new job description for Director 1, Student Intervention Services. 8.6,
I'm sorry.
yes, sir.
Just wanted to make the board aware that there's going to be an update to this hitting your email inboxes a little later today and on board docs with regard to the reports to language on this job description for Director 1. It'll be changed to Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum as opposed to Superintendent. My apologies.
And the evaluation.
And the evaluation portion at the end. It's all references to the superintendent. Oversight will go to the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum. And I do apologize that'll be on its way.
Okay, so 8.5, you're saying will
The
be...
Director 1
Mhm.
of Student Intervention Services will report to, the direct report will be the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum.
Okay, so...
Ms. Lightbourne, yes. Sorry about that.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that. All right, 8.6, request to advertise a public hearing for the adoption of a revised job description for Director, Exceptional Student Education and Student Intervention Services. 8.7, request to close the current Shoal River Middle School internal funds checking account and internal funds money market account at Hancock Whitney Bank and open a new internal funds checking account and internal funds money market account at Synovus Bank effective August 10th, 2021.
I'm sorry, because I just had to find one, go back. Mr. Chambers, back on that 8.5 and 8.6, with these appointments, are you feeling confident that we have our ESE where it needs to be to serve those students and those parents and everything's going to, I know we've worked a lot with appointments and the structure of those that department, and so I just want to, again, see that you feel confident that we're going to be set.
I feel very confident with the individuals in those departments, what they've done over the course of the last 2 months. It's truly miraculous, the amount of work that they've gotten done, bringing folks together, bringing itinerants together for the first time, professional development that's being occurred, that's being implemented, so I feel very confident with what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
So now we're at item 8.8, budget amendment number 10, fiscal year 2020 through 2021. 8.9, monthly financial statement for June 2021. 8.10, invoices to be approved for payment. 8.11, school donations. 8.12, notification and acknowledgement request, Faithful and Gould. 8.13, request price increase for ITB 18-21, carpet and tile flooring, district-wide. 8.14, tag-on bid purchase over $25,000, WTI. 8.15, tag-on bid purchase over $25,000, Playmore Recreational Products and Services. 8.16, exempted purchase over $25,000, Beacon Educator. 8.17, exempted purchase over $25,000, Edmentum. 8.18, exempted purchase over $25,000, Explore Learning. 8.19, exempted purchase over $25,000, Sunbelt Staffing Solutions. 8.20, exempted purchase over $25,000, Teachtown Incorporated. 8.21, exempted purchase over $25,000, Solient Healthcare LLC. 8.22, service agreement number 22-50, Denise Dechari. 8.23, service agreement number 22-51, Denise Dechari. 8.24, service agreement number 22-52, Chrissy Miller. 8.25, service agreement number 22-54, Denise McLaughlin. 8.26, contract between Bus Bulletin Incorporated and the School Board of Okaloosa County for the usage of bus bulletin notification system. 8.27, Okaloosa County School District bus routes for the 2021 through 2022 school year. 8.24, surplus and donate one 2001 International Thomas 65-passenger school bus to Okaloosa Academy. 8.29, renewal of the lease extension agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida and Northwest Florida Visionaires Incorporated. 8.30, general service agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and KB Services of Northwest Florida, LLC. And 8.31, contract lease renewal agreement and amendment to contract C08-1671-LIB between Okaloosa County Board of County Commissioners and the School Board of Okaloosa County for the Library Cooperative Courier Services. 8.32, memorandum of understanding between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northwest Florida. 8.33, request to submit the Carl D. Perkins Post-Secondary Entitlement Grant application for the fiscal year 2021 through 2022. 8.34, affiliation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida and Gulf Coast Immediate Care Center Incorporated for the Practical Nursing Program at Okaloosa Technical College. 8.35, affiliation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida and the Emerald Coast Infectious Disease Medical Group for the Practical Nursing Program at the Okaloosa Technical College. 8.36, agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the School Board of Walton County to provide ESE services to eligible Walton County students. 8.37, cooperative service agreement between the Florida State University and Okaloosa County School District. 8.38, school to work contracts between the School Board of Okaloosa County and school to work providers to provide careers experience opportunities for eligible students at Silver Sands School. And 8.39, Bureau of Federal Educational Programs, Title III, language instruction for English learners and immigrant enhanced instructional opportunities for recently arrived immigrant children and youth project application for the 2021 through 2022 school year. And that will conclude everything on Section 8. So now we'll move to Section 9 and Superintendent's Human Resource Recommendations. Item 9.1 and 9.2 will be informational only. So 9.1 is employees on administrative leave, and 9.2 deferred retirement option program, the drop. 9.3 employment separations. 9.4 personnel recommendations. 9.5 employee transfers. 9.6 employee termination. and 9.7 out-of-field report for the 2021 through 2022 school year.
If I might, could I stop there and Mr. Superintendent, I'm going to ask Dr. Hale to come forward and I just, not to put you on the spot, but I guess that I am by calling you up, but we're less than a week away from school. Just kind of like to hear how we're doing getting teachers and everybody in the classroom.
Sure. So as of this morning, we have 29 instructional positions that are still posted. Looking at our surrounding counties, our situation seems to be similar to our surrounding counties with regard to our size. We do have approximately, well, I don't know the exact number, but we have a smaller number than that of certified applicants that the principals are dealing with right now. So there's a considerable number of jobs that have no applicants right now. So it's a little bit of a concern, but I know that our principals are working very creatively, looking how to fill some of those positions with some temporary employees. And we've also got some substitutes that are in the throes of getting ready to take certification tests, which may be able to offset some of that. Some of our principals have specifically found some substitutes with bachelors in the areas that are interested in taking those subject area tests and then becoming an actual teacher. So
good.
I do anticipate some of those positions being filled. We're continuing to be creative with our marketing of our positions. Just in the last week, we have not only increased our social media exposure, but we are also working with, I have the notes right over here on the exact name of it, but I reached out to Elaine Lajeunesse to act as a liaison between us and the military retired community and some of the spouses and things like that. So we've got some traction in there. I've met some people. They are using some of our postings and putting it in some of their publications, and I'm hoping to see maybe some additional applicants, not only for instructional but for our ed support positions as well. New job postings on Indeed. I'm getting sporadic reach outs about that. Most of the people I'm hoping to come to the area. So when I'm asking them to get inside our system and start applying it, the filter works a little bit that way, and they either do or they don't. I'm inspecting some other ways to maybe market. I've reached out to CareerSource as well, and hoping to get to some of our local news media. But the simple fact of the matter is that all of our surrounding districts have job postings that look very similar to ours. In fact, I was looking at one specific one earlier today, and they've got a really long road ahead. And I can't speak to their administrators, but our principals are working really hard and really creatively to try to find good qualified people to put in front of these. Now, in terms of our ed support, our biggest area of need is in the paraprofessional realm. We have, I think it's 12 to 15 paraprofessional positions, only 2 of which are not ESE related and somehow, either through a one-to-one EBD or an EBD one-to-one. Most of them are in those categories. That's our biggest area of need. Our bus driver efforts are, as I was speaking to Mr. Strong earlier, they are slowly making an impact. It takes a while to get people certified. We have 9 applicants in the system right now that we didn't have previously. We have a couple that have been reaching out as a result of the part-time efforts that we've been saying as well. I'm not ready to say that it's a game changer yet, but there's an incremental change in the system, I would say. Mr. Jay McGinnis, in charge of transportation, continues to be optimistic, and we're going to continue to reach out to those who have CDLs and things like that to see if they're ready to make those changes. Those are the biggest areas in ed support. Of course, lunchroom monitor is always one that has a lot of postings because they're hard to get. It's middle of the day part-time stuff, and so our principals are using that in addition to other things to try to build full-time positions and opportunities with some of those folks. But our efforts are continuing. I hope to have increased numbers, information with each board meeting, but as of right now, 29 instructional, 15 paras, and of course the bus drivers that we're looking for continually.
Thank you. I guess we can assume that 29 teachers is across the board. Yep.
Right.
It's not one or two areas, probably
there's-
across.
As a matter of fact, they are spread across all districts, not all zones and all schools. Now, the bell curve lands kind of right in middle school. We're not looking for quite as many elementary or high school, but as a former high school principal, I can tell you that the ones we are looking for in high school are related to very specific certifications that have been historically hard to find. Specifically,
science and math
Right.
in the upper levels. And so we do have those issues, but there's no identifiable area of the county geographically that is completely immune, and 29 spread across 40 schools. There's no one school that's in significant peril compared to others. It's kind of spread across, but one position is a concern to a principal trying to start school, and so we're working really hard, contacting individual applicants, contacting principals about applicants, and things of that nature. So it's
Thank
just
you. Appreciate
it's
that
a grind, but
report.
we're working on it.
Follow up, Chairman. And Dr. Hale, I'm sure that you folks are still availing ourselves of teachers that may wish to teach a sixth period. I wondered if you might speak to that.
I don't have specific data on that, but all of our principals know that one section filled through a sixth subject is their option, and certainly I can bring some data back to you on that one if you'd like to, but our principals are being very creative in a lot of different
I
categories right now, and
suspect so.
sixth subject is one that secondary
Right.
likes to use a lot.
Exactly, because that's in those hard-to-fill areas is very, very difficult. And then the second thing would be, I know that you're looking at these positions at this time based on what amount to projections. And when we do our actual seat counts, there may be some shifts that occur there. Is that correct?
That's right, and I know that Mr. Horton and his group are watching those numbers very carefully, and as you know, we've been very conservative with allocating to begin with.
Right.
But as you know, as a former principal, the first day of school,
Mhm.
as opposed to projections and different levels, often look very different. So if there is some adjustments to be made, and of course, Mr. Horton could speak to that as we get closer to the first day of school, but you are correct, the numbers may change.
And that might help out some, but probably not with 29.
Well,
Right.
you're correct about that, but the good news, like I said, there's no one school that's overly
Right.
problematic, so
Right.
it might be able to help us out in some regard. So you are correct about that.
And on that topic, as you know, leading up to the start of school, we monitor attendance at,
Absolutely.
or enrollment at every school. So Mr. Horton does that meticulously, and I know he has some information even prepared for you today. So since this is being discussed right now, I'd like Mr. Horton to come up and just share a little bit of that information.
Excellent. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thanks, Mr. Chambers. And then, along with this, I worked very close with Julie Perry on the finance side requesting allocations. So back in the spring, after January, where we made our enrollment projections for the upcoming year, we went out with a certain number of allocations at the school level, looked to see if there was anywhere where we anticipated significantly lower enrollment, which was not the case. And when we looked at teachers who were naturally attriting through retirement or otherwise, we started out with initial allocations just to get the principals through the recommendation process by which they could recommend their existing teachers back for the upcoming school year. And normally, that still leaves a school wanting. So you might lose at a high school 6 or 7 or 10 teachers every year to a variety of reasons. So as we moved into the summer, we started looking at enrollment, and as Dr. White and the other folks who've been principals know, it's not possible to wait until August to hire 10 positions at a high school. So you've got to be strategic and start to put those allocations out when you believe you've gotten to a point where the enrollment is legitimate. And so in June, it's a little bit in May, but in June, we started releasing some of those allocations. And so as we move into August, we're still holding on a few here or there. And at the secondary level, middle and high school, now we're more holding on sections. So whereas a full employee might be one allocation, but if you teach 5 periods, then 1 period of a class would be 0.2 of a position. And so now we're down to some schools saying I might need to add 1 section here. It doesn't necessarily mean hiring a new teacher. It means giving someone a 6th period under contract to pay them hourly. So that's happening now. Just some updates as of last night. We had projected back in January. Wendy Meserve does our projecting for us and does work with ESC and discusses with schools, but it's more of a centralized model now. And so when she projected, and I'm talking about district-operated schools, not our charter schools, not our homeschool students, she projected 30,363 for enrollment, 30,363. I checked last night, we were at 30,135. So about 213 students shy. Now, a lot's going to happen in the next week. So we're going to enroll more than 213 students, probably significantly more, and at elementary into the first week of school, we'll still be enrolling students. And then something happens once we get past Labor Day. We either get a few more students in or we start to lose students. So some of the 30,135 that we show as enrolled right now won't show up. And that's what Dr. White alluded to. There are going to be some no-shows. We'll track those closely for the first 10 days of school. And so then we'll settle in on a number that hopefully is close to the 30,363 that we projected. Shouldn't be too far off. As a point of reference, so where were we this time last year? So is the district growing, shrinking? What kind of impact did we have? So in 2020, which we knew was going into a different year, we had the My School Online model, but the number that I'm going to give you for this date last year includes both the brick and mortar students and the My School Online. It was 29,770. So year to date, we're about 365, if my math is correct, above where we were at this time last year. In 2019, before COVID, we were at 30,082. So slightly above where we were in 2019. Now, again, that's not really the thing to keep your eye on. The thing to keep your eye on is what were our FTE projections and who's showing up in the building. And I think it may have been mentioned previously, this year in the legislative session, the class size reduction fund was cut, I think $3.2 million. And so that's something that we're using and working to use the ESSER funds and the federal funding to help offset that. That's a big deal for us in a normal year. So that's something that we're tracking on. And Mr. Chambers, I know we'll talk about the ESSER piece that's coming up. So that's something that could occur again in the future in terms of that. So it's something that we'll be keeping an eye on. But
Well,
for
if it happens in the future, hopefully we'll have those additional supplemental funds, because a $3.2 million hit, that's significant.
It is at about $77,000 all included for benefits, salary, everything for a teacher. Do the math on that. It's a significant number of teachers. So that's kind of where we're on enrollment. We'll track it again today. I'm kind of in communication with 3 or 4 principals now. Sometimes at the elementary level, Ms. Gardner, you're aware, you get the kindergartners start to show up. You're holding on a certain number of teachers, and we're at the school average for class size. So, if they're all sitting at 18 now, doesn't mean we hire another teacher right now. We're going to hold and do the best we can to monitor the school average, but we've got to be sensitive to particular grade levels where, numbers are getting significantly higher.
So real quick, I had requested the information regarding what our population was pre-pandemic. So obviously there's going to be a little bit of an increase, but you also mentioned kindergarten and first grade. What is the enrollment looking like?
They're not outrageous. So we're tracking kindergarten, and we want some more kindergartners still.
Right.
There was some discussion that maybe there'd be a really high kindergarten class this year because folks maybe, instead of trying to do homeschooling or otherwise, maybe with kindergartners last year, they just kept them home. We're not seeing a great deal of that right now. So no big balloon in kindergarten at this time.
First grade?
Not necessarily, no, sir. And again, so that's pretty level.
Okay.
Pretty level across the district.
Mr. Horton, on these numbers, when we projected in January, of course, that's all about the funding, and so we're not that far off. So what I'm asking is how close is it to really makes? I mean, a couple hundred's not going to throw us totally out of budget so much, but we certainly want to hit as close as that or above because we get more money for those students showing. But at what point is there a kind of a cutoff line of, if we're 500 students short or whatever, that we start saying this is really something to really worry about?
Well, so I think at 200 in a district of 30,000,
Yeah.
the percentage is relatively low. I'll argue, and I know you will, that every penny counts for
Sure.
us when we're trying to get our schools running. You'll get a report once we get to October when the state does their enrollment count then, and that's the important time. Again, we can have whatever we want in the schools in August and September, but the FTE count week in October is when the state pays you for what's there.
Exactly.
So once that happens, that's when Julie gets involved, and Wendy, and we have a corrections window for any errors that might occur. We can do that. We work with the schools on that, but then the state will then tell us how much money we really are going to get. And so everything up to this point is a projection. Now Julie and Rita before her have two things in place. They've got FTE reserves in the event that our enrollment's not where it needs to be, but it's always a challenge. And so one of the things that we see is when you're trying to meet class size, even at the school average, there might be an extra teacher that you need to hire for that to be compliant with the constitutional requirement to meet class size. The enrollment, however, may not always specifically pay for that position. So it may be 3 or 4 extra students in a school that to meet class size, you've got to hire another teacher. Well, the funding generated by those 3 or 4 extra students does not cover the cost of that teacher or that classroom or those supplies or anything else that's needed. So it's not an exact science, but we try to do the best we can.
Well,
Yeah,
I would
you do a
just
good job.
say, just in my opinion, that 200 students short, if you just used round numbers, that's $1 million
It's $1 million,
hit.
sir.
That's $1 million. So that's significant. That's a lot. And I know that you'll work hard to try to bring that into alignment.
Well, and one of the things we've done this year for the board is under our controlled open enrollment, and Mr. Chambers has said from the moment he's taken that chair that when we can accommodate a family who wants to attend one of our schools out of their zone, we'll do it.
Right.
We're holding on a few spots right now because, again, if you bring an extra 2 students in, now you're having to hire another teacher in that school. But we are very much and have been accepting of students from Walton and Santa Rosa County who want to come to school here because that's new revenue. New students means new revenue for the school district. So we are actively looking at those as they come across. Not over our own students, but certainly when they come into our district.
And I just want to add, our goal is to always give you accurate information on where we are right now. And we know, we look back historically, to be short 200 or 300 or 150 right now is not abnormal in any way, shape, or form. Historically, that's where we are. Now, we also know with where we are in this world, so we need to look at it. However, right now, as we sit here, we know that at schools, there are enrollment packets right now that those registrars are going through. And we know that there's going to be more students that will be coming. So what I do not want to do is have a sense that this is a panic moment by any means. I think historically, we're right where we are. We'll continue to grow students, but the same token, this is why we have a conservative approach to hiring. This is why Julie does a great job of setting aside FTE funds for a shortfall. But if history is any indication, we'll be fine.
Well, Mr.
And
Horton. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, every year, historically, we're either above our projections or below. We've never hit it on the money. When you're above your projections and you have more students, that typically what we attempt to do is we hold out our hand to Tallahassee and say, we've got more students, can you please fund us for those extra students? And the answer generally is sort of. So there's a certain budget for education each year, and if other districts around the state also report increased enrollment, then they do what's called proration, and you don't really get the total amount of funding for those extra students that you have. So
Even though those costs are still consistent.
Yeah.
teachers still cost the same,
That's
electricity
right.
still costs the same.
That's
So
the issue, and I agree, 200 off is not significant in terms of our past projections. But some of you more senior board members will remember that several years ago, we missed it, if I remember correctly, by about 700 students. And we're looking at a big hit, and it was about a $3 million shortfall, if I recall. So while I agree that by missing the 30,000 students by 200 is, on the face of it, doesn't seem significant. And the fact that you've been conservative certainly will help us deal with what could potentially be a shortfall if we do not recoup those 200 students, and in fact, I believe we may.
I think so. And when I check again at the end of the day, that 30,135 is likely to be 30,235. So we probably are making up half the difference of that number today. But again, what shows up the first day of school is great, and it helps us to inform us in terms of what the hiring we need to do is, but the count that the state does for funding is the first count is in October, and then the second's in February. So it's important to keep our kids in school throughout the year.
Well, and I was going to say that, thank you for monitoring this so closely to Ms. Perry, but you mentioned earlier, it's so often after Labor Day that we really, when the dust settles, we know what our enrollment truly is going to be. For some reason, students do change enroll after Labor Day. I don't know if it's, we always heard it was the military, maybe moving in families or so forth. I don't know that to be true, but typically it's after Labor Day that we would really get a strong count
Yes,
where
ma'am.
we are.
And we have a good relationship with the military in terms of communication, so Ms. LaJeunesse does a great job keeping us informed about folks, plans for folks coming in and that sort of thing. So I feel very good right now where we are from an enrollment standpoint, and we'll keep tracking it, and I'll provide some updates to the board, obviously prior to the next meeting. So you'll likely see some daily updates from me on that 30,135 number, so you can kind of track it into next week.
But there's also, of course, we're coming out of a big change from last year, and I know parents are still, if you're watching the news, you're still might be sitting on the sidelines about choosing to send their student back into the classroom. So there may be some sitting out there doing that, and of course, we want to let everybody know that if, we want your child back in our buildings, and if they're going to do that, to make sure that they are enrolled, that they, it's important that we know this so we can provide the services. So if you're just sitting out there still enjoying summer, try and make sure you get your student enrolled for school if you intend to send them back into the classroom. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. Thank you, Mr. Horton. All right, so we're at Section 11, Construction Program Owners Representatives Business, and 11.1, Program Status Report by the Board Representative to the Construction Program. And I know, even though Dr. Kelly's not here today, she'll be here Monday, and she'll give us a good report. As always, 11.2, TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 15, Pre-GMP for Gymnasium Floor Replacement at Crestview High School, Davidson Middle School, and Lewis School. And I would just like to comment that I'm really excited to see these items on there, more so for Davidson Middle School and Lewis School, because if you ever go to those schools, Lewis is playing on a concrete floor and Davidson is playing on plastic tile. So this will actually put them on track to be on a conditioned floor where it'd be safe, in my opinion, and will actually look good too. So we're really excited about that. And Crestview High School, I believe that's the original floor from pretty much since the school was open. So they sanded it down as far as they could go now. So, so we'll move down to Section 12. Information Technology Seat Management Contract, 12.1 CACI Task Order Number 2-193, Salto Gate at North Transportation, and 12.2 Task Order Number 2-185 for Eglin Elementary School for new camera system. And I know this is exciting for them. This is something they've been asking for at least a couple of years in my visits to the school, where that their camera system was operational, but it was definitely not to the standard that it needed to be. So this is going to be a great security upgrade for them. So now, item 13, attorney's business, and Mr. McInnes, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
A couple of items, Mr. Chairman. First, I wanted just to let the board know that through the superintendent's office, we've been working with the Air Force and the state of Florida on jurisdictional issues out on the base for Eglin Elementary School. And I'm pleased to let you know that that has been accomplished, that the federal government has now agreed to share jurisdiction of the Eglin Elementary School campus with the state of Florida. The governor has signed off on that, and that's finished. And so now that will clear the path for us to keep the SRO out there, and the Sheriff's Department will have jurisdiction on that campus. And so we just want you to know that's been taken care of, and we're very pleased that all the agencies have worked very well for us and for the Sheriff's Department to get that done. Secondly, in regard...
Let me interrupt for 1 second. So what Mr. McInnes just said, so that is significant, but I also want to let you know the coordination that Mr. McInnes did with Eglin, and Eglin with the federal government, back to the governor's office, to the Department of Education, the amount of folks that Mr. McGinnis spoke to, the amount of attorneys that he spoke to get this done. Because if not, we would have been in a situation where Eglin would not have had an SRO, in essence, on campus. So we know that we're mandated to do so. So even though he reported it that way, he significantly impacted this in a great way.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. And then secondly, in regard to our continuing efforts to review policies, we're working right now on Chapter 5, and we'll have that to you in the next couple of months, and then that will complete this first year under your new policy of having the first 5 chapters reviewed, revamped, updated, and ready to go.
So just to follow up on the Eglin Air Force Base school, so you're talking about jurisdiction-wise, that's just for security only, right? That's security
That's
measures?
correct.
Okay.
Nothing
else pertaining to the school,
Right.
as far as what the federal government has?
The base still has jurisdiction over that area because they own the land and the building. We have a lease from them, but this does clear the state agencies such as the Sheriff's Department to have jurisdiction in just the footprint of that campus.
And all the other issues that are going on out at the base as far as what the federal government has implemented out there, that's still over the federal government's umbrella, how that operates at the school?
Yes, sir. The commanding general at the base still, when he has directives and issues, they still apply to that part of the property of the base.
All right,
Yes.
thank you, sir. All right, so Mr. Chambers, we do have 14.1 out of student trip requests, and then I'll turn it over to you for your presentation, sir.
Thank you, sir. So a couple things. As we know, school is here. Next Tuesday will be the first day of school. I do just want to take a small moment to say to families who are out there, we all know that the first week of school, in terms of routines and processes, things are slower, such as car rider lines, such as buses. So just being patient with that. And it's miraculous how a car rider line the second week of school might be 30 minutes shorter than it was the first week of school.
Oh, I know for sure.
And a lot of that's due to safety, making sure that certain that kids are where they need to be. Also, right now, our principals are doing a great job with their teachers, with staff that's coming back. So was able to visit a number of schools yesterday, and the red carpet that's being rolled out for teachers and staff is great to see. Really saw the mood of teachers yesterday and staff, so I was excited to see the energy. Excited to see people very happy to be back, so made me feel really good. Also, just want to reiterate, I shared this last time, but just again, the cleaning that's occurring, still probably right now as we speak during this meeting. And a lot of work, as you know, goes into preparing for the start of the school year over the entire summer, but inevitably, this week, still there's things that are going on. Just appreciate the hard work of our maintenance staff, our facility staff, and the things that are happening at the school level. Also, I do want to say the capital budget, the flexibility that we now have within the capital budget to do items such as safety, such as school buses, such as our transition to focus. So again, we start looking at the impact of the half-cent sales tax and the great things that are going to be occurring over the course of this year, but also the flexibility that it provides us within the capital budget to do some of the things that we've always needed to be done. So just appreciate that. Julie Perry has worked extremely hard on all the budgets, but as we talk about the capital budget, working hand in hand with Mr. Horton, I just appreciate the work that's being done there. I think it's going to be exciting to see the type of projects that are going to be occurring this year and into subsequent years going forward. So just appreciate that work. Bus routes, as you know, went out on Sunday, and families, you will probably receive some calls on that first week of school, because I know I will, and that will get smoother and smoother as we get into the second week of school. But those bus routes are out there. They can also be found on our website. You saw earlier in the agenda the bus app, that bus bulletin, so families can sign up, and really want to encourage them to sign up for that bus bulletin. So if a bus is running late, that app goes out so parents will know. We receive calls a lot, as you know, where's my child? So we want to do a great job communicating with our families And Mr. McGinnis, Jay McGinnis, has done a great job getting us this bus bulletin app.
Mr. Chambers, can I interject on the bus routes
Please.
and all? So you did acknowledge Jay McGinnis and all of transportation. I have to commend them on the job that they've done as far as considering the circumstances of the shortage of bus drivers that we have. So people in Okaloosa County know, because of their hard work and effort, we did not have to make any adjustments to school times, anything like that, like Escambia County had to do. So hopefully on Tuesday morning, everything is going to go smooth. But like you said, please be patient. But overall, I think transportation has done an incredible job of getting ready for this, considering the circumstances with the bus driver situation. So.
Absolutely, Mr. Bryant. And you look at, with the board's support, and very much appreciated, from the sign-on bonus to working with us where teachers and staff could also take some routes, and that's really helped. Mr. Horton briefed me today that has really helped, especially in the north end of the county. And then, of course, looking at that $17 an hour. So we're hoping that these steps that you guys have helped us implement is making a difference there. And then I also wanted to say, again, appreciate the action today on the bus bulletin with that vote on Monday. But that's a big deal. Couple curriculum updates. So tomorrow, just for your calendar's purposes, there'll be professional development. This is our first professional development day of the year. So we have one on August 6th, and then we have another one in terms of county-wide in January. So tomorrow, a lot of the focus will be on Canvas, which is a new platform. A lot of the colleges have Canvas, but this is a learning platform where teachers can send students information, students can send it back. In the science and math areas, there's actually questions for the content based on standards that teachers can use. They can create formative, summative assessments. So it's going to be a game changer for us in terms of getting more towards the 21st century with the way that teachers and students can interact with each other. So I appreciate Ms. Lightbourne and the curriculum staff bringing that. And then there'll be more content area training as well. So curriculum has had a very busy summer, and again, with 2 weeks short, there's a lot to be done, but just appreciate that work that's coming forward. The ESSER 2, as you know, the application is due to Tallahassee on August 12th. So the approximate $12 million in that second set of ESSER funds, we're hoping to get that approval quickly, and then hoping to be able to access that money thereafter. So that'll be submitted on time August 12th. And then the stuff, the bus that occurred this past weekend, just again, appreciate the community. I know you look at just the different things on social media and the amount of citizens in the county and educators in the county that are helping us with the stuff, the bus. That's a big deal. We just had Hibbett's today. Hibbett's, they brought 50 backpacks to the district today to give to students. And Amy Dale said right now there's 41 students, 41 that are in need of book bags that we know of right now. So all of those students are going to get book bags. You may have seen Remax up in Crestview. They're providing us with over 1,300 headphones. I say all that, and there's a lot more. There's a lot more who help our school districts and community and businesses who help us. It's just remarkable. And then the last thing, almost the last thing that I would say, is there's another Stuff the Bus that's coming this weekend. So Alan Baggett with the homeowners. There's a building industry, he's with the Building Industry Association, but there's the 42nd annual home show, and people will be able to drop off supplies this Saturday and Sunday. So just appreciate that very much. And then we already know on Monday night, Mr. Gates, Senator Gates will be here presenting us with the Triumph Award, and that's something that we've really worked hard to get with the Artificial Intelligence Institute, so we're excited about that. And then of course Gary Venuti, I'll have more words on Monday, but just a true, I'd call him a true OCSD employee. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chambers. And we'll move down to item 15, and this is board members' announcements and requests for information. And the Honorable Miss Marty Gardner, I'll start with you today, ma'am.
Just that, Mr. Chambers, you mentioned it about for parents to be patient that first week of school, but also for our citizens that are out there. The school zones will be effective, officers will be out there. I don't think you want to start your day with a citation. They are expensive, and we also know that our little ones kind of come out from every which way. So just to remind our citizens that school will start back on Tuesday, and keep an eye out for our students.
And before I get to Ms. Ivanchek, I did forget item 15.1, but this is school board member travel request. It's a request to travel to a FSBA Policy Governance and Bargaining 101 Certified Board Member Forum, and this is something I've requested to go to. This is more in line with the role that I'm playing as the Vice Chair of Advocacy this year, so I thought it was important to go to this particular training. And now we'll go to Ms. Ivanchek.
And Mr. Bryant, I want to thank you for, you always represent us well in Tallahassee and get on those boards, and thank you, sir, because that helps us know what's going on, and just appreciate you representing us on that. Want to reiterate about the Stuff the Bus, as that was part of the Public Schools Foundation. We worked with United Way, and it was seriously hot out there, but I went by as our representative. But it was great, and like you said, it was teachers, principals, and citizens and everything. But one thing that the workers, the organizing it from United Way, said to me, because I was thanking them for doing this, and they wanted to say that the Okaloosa County Public Schools employees are at the top of the givers for United Way every year consistently. Our employees give those donations, many out paycheck by paycheck, and she said this is the least we can do because Okaloosa County employees in the school district always come through for United Way. And of course, we benefit, everybody benefits for that, but I wanted to put that out there that I thought that was really good. The next thing is that under the Public Schools Foundation with Mr. Horton, we had our Take Stock in Children mentoring meetings this week. We have 54 students who are being mentored. That means there are 54 mentors. That's great. And to have those numbers, that's big. We have community members throughout and all over the district. So that's a great program. And to remind you that the students that stay through that program end up getting that Bright Future Scholarship. So it's a terrific program, and I'm glad. I knew you're probably back with it this year, and I am too. It's great to be with that. The other thing I want to mention is, again, it's always nice to see our community looking out for us, and there's going to be at least one, I don't know all of the locations, but I know there's one church, Trinity United Methodist, who's doing a prayer service for teachers, a service this Sunday night, and there may be some others, but again, the public's always trying to take care of us. There is one item that I want to bring up again. I brought it before, since we're talking about capital budget and with the sales tax, it does allow us some, like you mentioned, some discretion on our capital budget. And I brought this up the other day, but once again, we've had a school request funding from at least a couple of us for furniture. This time it's in the media center, and I'm glad to help with everything in the limits of what funding that I can. But it truly is my thought that our district, when it comes to furniture, classroom furniture, that should be something that's pulled beyond asking board members to use those funds, because those are so limited. And I had mentioned that before, and I know it's not been very much time since I mentioned it, but I was just wondering, where we stood on that. Is that something that we would need to request or vote on as a board, that we change that? But to me, desks and having tables in the media center, and from what I'm hearing from these principals, it's not they're kind of old, we'd like to change it. It is a dire request of, they just aren't functioning anymore.
Yes. So I appreciate that. So, and appreciate the suggestion. So Mr. Horton and Mr. Meyer, already working through that process.
Thank you.
We will be utilizing ESSER funds as a
Oh,
means
great.
to really make a big dent in the, especially the student desks. Mr. Horton, and correct me if I'm wrong, has also has a line item in the capital budget as well. And just like bus replacement program that we used to not have, we will now also have a classroom desk replacement program where we will allocate funds each year in the capital budget. But our goal is to make a substantial dent starting next year. I'll tell you, when you start having a conversation about desks and really utilizing these funds, and let's just say that we wanted to do every desk in Okaloosa County, then you start realizing quickly, where are all the other desks going to go?
Yeah.
How's that process going to work? So we will make a substantial dent, but then we'll have a replacement program going over a 10-year plus cycle to make sure that we're doing a good job with classroom furniture. So do appreciate that suggestion.
Well, thank you for getting on that so quickly, Mr. Chambers and Mr. Horton, because I appreciate that, because I just mentioned that the other day, but I'm now seeing us, another time. So thanks for getting that in place, because I just think that's important that if we have those funds and we do have that discretion, we should be doing that, I think, so that we're not utilizing the limited funds that we have as board members. Thank you, sir.
And just a quick follow-up on the classroom furniture. I know that you folks must be looking at that with great detail in terms of doing all of that kind of thing. And I'm sure that will be based on some kind of needs assessment, so that we're not replacing furniture that's still serviceable, because
Right.
of course
Oh, yeah.
it's very, very expensive. So I don't know if you're surveying the principals and getting their feedback on what they need, or how necessarily you're doing that, but I have every confidence that you'll do that in that appropriate way. That's all. Thank you, sir.
And you made a comment about the furniture that we recently did for Meigs Middle School. I had the opportunity to be over at Meigs the other day and saw what some of those desks look like, and quite a few, they were all safety hazards in my opinion. So it's good that they're being able to be replaced, and because we were able to all work together and help her get those students were being some pretty nice desks this year. So.
Oh, yeah, it's great. And that, not only safety, but just having a nice desk and nice furniture is a big morale booster, and I think that students do better in a nicer environment. So, yeah, I think it's important. I just think we need to look at the funding is what my request was. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I also think that being able to buy it in, say, bulk
Yeah.
is going to be cheaper than, if I purchase 25 for a
Right.
school and then you purchase 25. So I think you might maybe save some money right there.
Yes, ma'am.
Get some better pricing.
Anything else, babe?
No, I'm good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vanchek and Dr. White.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, first of all, I'd just like to express appreciation to the chairman and the superintendent for restoring the boardroom to the condition that we grew accustomed to in the past. And I think that's very, very important as we open our schools up, and the fact that the school board is now sitting the way they used to and without partitions and all those kinds of things shows that we're going right along with the program, so to speak. The second thing is an information request from the superintendent, perhaps directed his choice to Ms. Perry, regarding Ms. Vanchek's question concerning ESE staffing. And Ms. Perry, I think you probably gave us seems like 9 volumes of notebooks on school budget. And I don't remember seeing this, but I have seen it in the past, and I'm wondering if you might be able to provide a simple overview indicating the amount of revenue generated by our ESE programs, the amount of federal funding supplemental that we receive, and then also maybe include any additional district funding that we've already provided to support our ESE program. I remember that at one time, quite frankly, it was a significant number that came from the district because the revenue generated by the program and the revenue provided by the federal government was insufficient. So I'd be curious to see that, just because it would be, I think, perhaps edification of the request that was made about that. And then lastly, just to say how much I appreciate the work that's gone into opening the schools. I well remember those sleepless nights leading up to the first day of school. And I see nodding heads in the background because you too remember those. And I'll just never forget what I was told a long, long time ago. Just be sure you have a good opening day of school because that's how the rest of your year is going to be. And that made quite an impression on me. And I know, Superintendent, you and your staff and your principals and your teachers are working hard to have that kind of opening. And we just really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. White. And I'll just conclude by saying also, Mr. Chambers, with your leadership and the rest of your staff, because of our transparent, how we're transparent with everything that we do as far as opening schools and all, I believe that because of your communication, your leadership, we're going to open up schools on August 10th. And like Dr. White said, it's going to be we're going to get to the start line, but then after that, it's off to the races after that. But I will say that because of your leadership and all the school resources out, the teams out there, it's going to go off without a hitch, in my opinion. It's going to be a normal beginning. So thank you to you and your staff for getting us to the start line. And now we're going to get to the finish line. I already saw some graduation. Reserve your date for graduation already. So we had. So.
Let's get started.
Yeah, I don't need that date yet.
Okay. Oh, and real quick, just go back to item 15.1, just so the public knows, by law, we have to be transparent when we go on any type of training or trips or anything like that. That is at the taxpayer expense, and it is anything over $500. So this particular item is out there for transparent reasons and because it's what we have to do by law. So. All right, 16 is public comment. 16.1, members of the public desiring to address the school board, and this will be the 2-minute version. And if I could, school board members, direct your attention to above you. We will now have a clock in place. I've noticed that in these times of other school board meetings across the state, they all have clocks up there for public comment, and this will help make sure everybody stays on track. We actually have a very liberal time limit, 4 minutes. Most school districts is 3. And then a lot of them will cut the mic off. We at least try to let everybody finish what they have to say. So, but if anybody's wondering what that is up there, that's going to be the timer. So
That's not for us.
Not for us. And 17 will be public hearing, and this is a public hearing on the school district's 5-year capital outlay plan. And I think, Mr. McInnes, on 17.1, it just says it's public input only, so we will not actually be voting on this particular item.
That's
correct?
my understanding.
Yes. Okay, so at this time, we'll go around the board. Dr. Hale, Ms. Lightbourne, Mr. Horton, Ms. Perry, and Mr. Strong's already left, so this meeting's adjourned.
Good job, Tim.
Thank you.